This is a tutorial on how to create a bone structure, or what we call a human IK, to your character. Under the pull down menu up in the upper left hand corner, you'll want to set that to rigging, and when you do so, there will be a different pull down menu up at the top, and under skin you will go down to, or skeleton, you will go down to human IK, and once you select that, you'll see there is a character control panel over here on the right, and what we want to do is select skeleton. The skeleton appears in your viewport, and then you'll need to move around to get that into position. I'm going to add a couple elements to this character and then show you how to quickly bind the character to your objects, and then add a control rig to it as well. The important thing is to make sure that the objects that you create are in line with your skeleton. If this sphere happened to be off slightly, we may not get a good bind between your objects and the skeleton. So once you have all your objects created, then we are going to need to combine both or all the objects as one. So then we need to go to the modeling pull down menu, go to mesh, and combine those objects. Sometimes when you try to select everything, you'll end up selecting the skeleton as well. So an option might be to select the skeleton, go to display, and hide that which is selected, which is now the skeleton. So if I click hide selection, that is disappeared. It still exists. Now I can go to grab all my objects, go to mesh, and then create the combine. Now if I go back, once I'm done combining, I can go back to show everything, including the skeleton, and now my objects are combined and the skeleton exists, and now we can move on to binding those elements together. Next we go to the rigging pull down menu. We select the skeleton and then shift click and select your objects, and then we will go to the skinned and bind skin. Once you bind the skin, we move over to the character controls here, and we're looking to apply what we call a control rig. So once I click on control rig, you'll see that the skeleton turns a yellow color. You'll see red elements, circles and squares. Those are actually the elements that we'll want to use to move our character around. So if I click on, for instance, the wrist of this bind and hit the W key, I can grab the green square here and kind of move that in different positions. I'll hit Command Z to undo. You can do the same thing with other elements as well. So the key is to make sure that the skeleton that you're using, if you decide to scale it down based off your character, that the character's feet are close to the ground grid here. Otherwise, once you create a control rig, things might get squished. So it's important that you set this all up correctly. If you did it wrong and you get some kind of strange bind and a different kind of control, you may have to undo out, remove the skeleton, or unbind here under the pull down menu, and then recreate a new skeleton for your objects. Once you create the bind and the control rig, you'll see under character controls here that in addition to selecting elements in the viewport, you can also click those elements over here under the controls. Once you have that control rig all set up, everything looks good, then you can actually go into the animation down here. Right now it's set at the first frame. To add a keyframe, and we've discussed this before, all you have to do is move your playback head or this scrubber, as I'm clicking and dragging, to the location where you want to create that keyframe. Hit the S, move your playback head out to 60 frames, for example, and then move your arm, and then hit S again to create that second keyframe. So remember, a keyframe is a change in one's property over time. So you've got to create a keyframe, move to some part of the timeline, and then hit another keyframe with a new position. So if I rewind this, you can see that it's going to move out based off the position that I had set. If you need to move a keyframe, you can shift click on that keyframe and then manually move it. So the more I move this keyframe to the right, the slower the animation will be. The more I move it to the left, the quicker it'll be. Again, depending on what I select, the timeline may change as far as what needs to be keyframed. So if I want to now move the leg, I click the lower circle, red circle at the bottom, hit a keyframe, move out maybe to a new location, move my leg, and then hit the S key for that new position. I'll hit rewind, and now I've got some animation working there.